Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to talk about ONE FC, both Ruotolo brothers hitting the same sub. We're going to talk about Subversion that took place in Australia and break down some Keith Krikorian matches because he's been busy as per usual. As per usual on the show, I'm your host, Mange, my co-host,
Miranda.
Hey, doing Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. We are also going to preview a couple of other things coming down the pipe. Karate Combat has some fun matches coming up with Craig Jones, and kind of Duarte's on that card as well. Also, PGF World is coming up, and I want to talk about it. We've been getting comments for since PGF's been running. People asking us to cover it, but with the format, it was a little hard for us to cover. We are for sure covering PGF World.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. It's got some stacked names on it. We'll preview that a little later in the show. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit of the news. Zach and I broke down every person that was announced for ADCC last week. Super happy with that show. It did well. I think it was a really great overview of all of the grapplers. It will allow us to not have to do the same show come August, even though we probably will with the additional names. But speaking of additional names, I think last week we talked about Kayuna Gabriel getting announced for ADCC. He placed second at the trials. Both trials looked very, very good. And he's a guy we've been watching for a couple of years now. Really, really impressed us. Also got announced, Micah Galvao at under 77 kilograms, which is really a surprise to no one. You're a returning silver medalist.
Yeah,
you're a returning
we
silver
kind of
medalist.
We kind of knew that was going to happen.
We really just were waiting when he was going to get the invite is really what it was. Like, your medalists most likely, unless they refuse, which they do sometimes, come back. And then I think another big, and so we assume Micah Galvao is going to be in. He is now in at the same weight class. Hopefully we see that Kade Ruotolo rematch. Really, with how they're bracketed, they would probably only meet in the finals, but both of them could absolutely make it there, especially with Kade's performance this weekend.
I agree.
So
that'll be interesting.
That will be fun. Let's see. Craig Jones still kind of has announced that he probably is not going to do ADCC.
Yeah,
is what it seems like. He seems like he's upset about the money.
But then he made a announcement that he's going to do a big seminar before it.
Yeah, like he'll be there.
Yeah.
So with Craig, you don't quite know. He's out in Ukraine right now.
Well,
on the
you
front
also
lines
never
doing
know.
stuff.
You also never know when he makes those kind of comments what he actually means by them.
Yeah, you never know if he's like. You never know how serious Craig Jones is.
I mean.
Because sometimes he's super serious and sometimes he's not.
You're taking comments from Jim Belushi's mom.
Yeah, that's his. Yeah, and he had an Instagram post.
Yeah,
he had a video that he kind of talked about it with the seminar and stuff. So he ends up at ADCC. Again, I would love to see him at ADCC. I love watching him perform over the years in ADCC. Yeah. He is the reason why we run the show in the first place. Is because of his performance in 2017. So I like to see him, but if he's done, that's his decision. I would just, as a fan, absolutely love to see him one more time in ADCC. Also announced this week, I thought I had some other information that I was going to say for ADCC, but I think the youth championships are coming along.
Yeah.
That will happen. There is ADCC World Open, again, is happening in Vegas coming up. That'll be the week, I think the Thursday before,
I need to
like it was last time.
I need to register. I don't think it's open yet.
Yeah. I might work it like last time. I'm not sure yet.
Well, we won't have a concert that we need to get to. So
right, Nine Inch Nails is not playing again.
Yeah, Nine Inch Nails is not playing again on that weekend.
So yeah, ADCC is coming up. It should be fun. I don't think we have any other ADCC news.
No.
We're really whittling down. There's not very many invites left, but we'll keep, in the news section of the show, keep kind of breaking down and talking about who's been announced. That list is very much filled up. I assume Keith's getting announced. We'll talk about him this week, but I assume, man.
I hope Keith gets announced.
That level of consistency at trials, man. I hope he gets announced.
He hasn't stopped competing.
Twice this weekend.
Well, no, it was last weekend and this weekend.
Oh, wait, because we had the bumper show in the middle there.
Yeah. But still, it's every weekend.
Yep.
Almost every weekend since.
Dude's staying active and staying winning. That's how he performs so well at trials. He's just consistently in the room, in the competition space.
He also says he's just competing now to compete. Like, he doesn't give a shit exactly what happens.
Good for him,
he's
man.
Just like,
he's
whatever.
winning, though.
Yeah.
So, also this weekend, we had UFC 300. It was phenomenal. I got together with some folks from the gym and watched it. Had a great time. Probably talk about that in the outro. We don't usually talk about MMA, but it was wild enough that I want to talk about it a little bit.
It was a wild card.
It was it lived up well past the hype. So we'll talk about that maybe in the outro for a couple minutes. Yeah. Also announced this week, we have Uriah Faber versus Jeff Glover.
In combat jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, A1 Combat is what you have here.
That's who announced it. It's going to be on UFC Fight Pass, so.
Yeah, I'll probably watch.
I'm gonna watch.
Yeah, I'll watch. Well, if you want us to break it down on the show, let us know. Again, I'm personally not the biggest fan of combat jiu-jitsu,
I have
but
a feeling Uriah is going to kill Jeff Glover.
Because Jeff Glover's very good fighter.
Jeff Glover's game is very like, I need to be under you, I need to get your weight on me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's not conducive
Faber
to
is
combat.
a very good wrestler and fought for a lot of titles over the years.
He's a professional, or he's retired at this point?
He's retired twice now. I think
but
he's actually retired now.
Yeah, but I mean, he was a professional fighter, which their striking is different than Jeff Glover's striking. No offense to Jeff Glover.
Yeah, Jeff Glover's an amazing jiu-jitsu practitioner, but doesn't.
And I bet you
he's from that era.
And I bet you he has a really good bitch slap, but
he does. but so that got announced this week. We'll cover that as it gets closer. That's end of May.
Can we call it that anymore?
I don't think I can.
Okay,
I don't think I can call it that anymore. It's a power slap now.
It's a power slap? Okay.
Or whatever we're calling it. So let's catch up from last week. I want to kick it off with the Ruotolos.
Okay.
Which Ruotolo brother do you want to start with, Miranda?
Well, we'll start with Tye, only because I know you're going to go off the deep end.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
So go off the deep end.
Tye Ruotolo took on Izaak Michell this last weekend for the one championship for the welterweight bout. That is 185 and 1FC because they have different weight cutting rules and regulations, which I actually really like. Izaak Michell looked good. We were kind of concerned about his training situation leading into this match. He put some good pressure into Tye.
Yeah.
The match was kind of a bit pushing in the beginning, and then there's a snap down, and they kind of go up and down. There's a really, really good takedown on the ropes. I love that this event was with the ropes. Like, I like seeing these things in the cage, but I also like that 1FC has rings, like boxing rings, like the rings, and will have cages. Like, I like that this one was in the ropes.
Was it K1 that used to do that?
A lot of them used to do it. Like K1 used to do it as well. Like a lot of the promotions used to do it before the fence really became the primary thing. I still really like seeing matches in the ring. Like there's something really cool about it that I like. And we had Izaak Michell grabbing the ropes, and Herbie had to go around and see that he was doing it. Tye did the same thing. He kind of posted on it. It just creates a different environment for people to have a grappling match in. Well, and it was great.
And then the other match, you have somebody using the side post.
Yeah, we'll talk about Francisco Lowe here in a minute. Match is good. There is one sequence that I really want to talk about and break down because it was absolutely absurd. And I'll run through it here as we go. Essentially, Izaak Michell, through a kind of like a shuck by, gets Tye Ruotolo's back.
Yeah.
And then Tye Ruotolo, being the gangster he is, he's like, okay, I'm going to counter takedown you off this. And he hits essentially what is an arm whizzer, like, not really a harigoshi. Judo has a term for it, but it's essentially the harigoshi hip throw, Osoto wheel throw over the top when you have someone at the same side whizzer on their back.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or the overhook on their back. And there's a name for it in judo, and I kind of looked it up today, and I couldn't find the exact throw name for it, but Tye goes for it. It's not an uncommon throw.
Next time that happens, tell me, because I have a judo person. I can send it to him, and he'll tell me.
Oh, I would have known that 10 minutes ago. We would have done that.
We would have done that.
Tye doesn't get it because Izaak Michell does a really good job of like outposting and getting away from that throw. Then Tye does it to the other side and basically tries an outside trip. Izaak Michell drives down over top of Tye. And this is where it gets wild. This is where I was yelling at my TV.
It was almost like he was trying to sit out, but he didn't.
Right. You know? He hits the butt. Izaak Michell does exactly what he does, and he covers the hips. And then Tye, because there's still space there, has Izaak Michel's overhook arm essentially blocking Izaak Michell from taking the back, but not really blocking him from taking the back because Izaak Michell can scoop around him and take the back. Tye Ruotolo sits on his butt. He then takes the leg that is next to Izaak Michell and threads it through under Izaak Michel's body while he's doing a sit-through. So now the arm that essentially Izaak Michell was going to use as a seatbelt grip to take Tye's back, Tye is holding when he is sort of given Izaak a really, really low guard.
Yeah.
Because of Izaak is so low and Tye has this overhook on the shoulder, Tye can sit through and do essentially a hip bump sweep that you do like the traditional Kimura hip bump sweep from this really open guard position. Calling it the open guard, I think, is pretty disingenuous. It's not really, it's like a sit through transition that Tye does here. And then he, boom, comes to top on Izaak Michell, and I yelled at my TV.
But you watch it, and it shouldn't be that way.
It's a second and a half transition.
I'm like, how does that actually happen? That I don't understand.
For Tye to have the wherewithal to know, I'm getting taken out, to basically do 2 failed takedowns, and then Izaak to drive him down, and Tye sort of like half take him down with the outside reap throw, and then hit the mat, sit his leg through after doing a sit through to get his leg under Izaak, and then hip bump off of that into mount and avoid the back take. This is one of the wildest sequences I have ever seen.
I feel like that's probably something him and his brother do to each other. It has to be something they do to each other.
It has to be.
And this is what they figured out like works. Because he hits it smoothly enough. It wasn't like it wasn't a...
It was so smooth. It was like you've drilled this or you've done this. This is not a sequence that you just independently came up with in the moment. This is something that you've had. I bet there's training footage of them in the garage where it's like one of them goes to do this high leg throw and the other knows it's going to come and so drives him down and sits. I'm guessing...
It has to be,
This sequence is not something you're ever going to learn. This is something you have to feel and have done and figure out.
Yeah, or there's somebody in the gym that does this to you all the time. And this is how you've found a way to combat that movement.
You're in like a nuance of a meta, of a transition here that is, it's wild. And he hits it versus Izaak Michell, who is one of the top guys in the world.
And it doesn't look like Izaak really knew what he was putting himself into.
Because in that position,
you know what I mean? In that position,
you're getting your back taken.
Yeah,
like that's what Izaak is doing. Isaac's in position with his arm,
and
over
his arm is around the waist, which is where it should be. Yeah, he's putting weight into the legs,
and he has the arm over the shoulder to shuck and take the seatbelt grip for the back. Because if Tye turns to the side like he's doing in that sit through, he gets to take the back. And Izaak Michell, we've seen him on the back. We know he is so good there.
And I wonder if that overhook right there is also because they both like the Darce. And so I wonder if they try to hit the Darce from that position. You know, the landing position that Izaak is in, and you just reach forward and grab the Darce from there. And if this is how they've learned to combat each other, like, haha, you can't get my head down. You know what I mean? And this is just something that's come from
years of fighting your world champion level brother. Yeah, that it wouldn't surprise me at all. But it was the coolest sequence that I have seen in a long time. Like, Miki, I mean, a couple of these guys consistently put on these kind of like movements and performances. Like both Ruotolo brothers will do it. Micah Galvao does it. Tye Ruotolo does it. But generally speaking, it is pretty rare to have sequences that are as complex as this hit as smoothly as this. Yeah. And it's like organic. It was a pleasure to watch, and I rewatched it probably 15, probably more than 15 times, just over and over. I brought my wife in. I showed her. She showed me a leg position thing. She's like, "Yeah, look at his leg." I was like, "Oh, that's neat. I didn't see that." It was a really, really cool movement. And then eventually Tye gets to Isaac's back, and this is the second match of the evening for the Ruotolos. Yeah. So Kade has already had his match where he hits an arm in rear naked choke, and then Tye goes, "Hey, my brother did that cool thing. Yeah. I'm going to do it twice." But the camera angle here is a little better for when he does it on Izaak Michell. Yeah. And you were talking about, this is something that you saw, and then because we were doing this breakdown a week later, you've had a week to kind of muck with this in the gym a little bit.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's a weird one because number one, you don't expect it to work, but it's one of those, like, when you're kind of transitioning to someone's back, but you're not quite there yet, but their arm is up, and you can
they give the seatbelt grip. I mean, because people will give you the underhook grip there a lot of times,
and they don't, and it's not threatening. At no point are they really worried about getting stuck on anything,
because really you're taught, like, you want to avoid the top hand over the shoulder because that's the choking arm.
So if you reach under the arm and through to the far shoulder, most people just assume you're going to their back, so they don't really rush to go either direction. They don't rush into you, but they don't rush away from you because you're coming to their back. So they're just like, okay, I'm going to back flat to the mat, and you can't go anywhere. And you just like cinch it up and start squeezing. And then they're like, oh shit, that, and then they tap pretty damn fast.
The Ruotolos are both doing it from the back, but it is a really, I'm immediately curious if we're going to see this come in the meta.
My arms are not long enough to do it. With people's shoulders from the back.
The way that the Ruotolos look like they're doing it, it looks like they're doing it as like almost like a Darce grip from the back. Yeah. Because they have the length in their arms to be able to do that, and they thread it through. It's essentially, it's a head and arm. Well, it's a rear naked choke with the arm in, head and arm from the back.
And it's because when you think about it, like, that's not a position that traditionally you're taught to defend. Like
Yeah.
that arm that's beneath, you're not
Traditionally, you want the arm
Yeah.
there. It's a thing. We all know that this is a choke that can exist,
Yeah.
and occasionally, like, you get hit by this by a big, strong guy. It's like, okay, it's
Yeah.
there. But at a high level like this in both these matches, it's not something we see.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last high-level guy that I have seen put away with an arm and rear naked choke.
No.
Like, it is not.
But they have done it
common.
a few.
Gary Tonon's done it a couple times.
They've done it quite a few times recently.
Yeah.
In matches.
But
and it's kind of their thing.
to see them both hit the Ruotolo team is what they're calling
Yeah.
it. Which again, I'm like, you hit it in 2 world title fights back to back. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not one for giving guys and letting them name stuff, but man, I might kind of refer to it as the Ruotolo team.
Yeah.
If these guys, again, they both world title fights, back to back brothers to do it. It was pretty cool. The way that I'm still kind of blown away by the way that Tye and Kade both do this, because you can see in the camera angle for the Izaak Michell match that Tye hits, that Izaak is going to sleep. Like,
Yeah.
it is so crazy tight. It's like it's like a head and arm, but just from the back, because they're doing it like that Darce grip. It's a really interesting choke that we don't see a whole lot, and I'm guessing that with both these brothers hitting it back to back and getting bonuses for it,
Yeah.
we are immediately going to see every lanky guy going for this
Yeah.
and putting this into their arsenal, because again, it's a really good choke apparently, and so there's probably some mechanics here that the community is going to figure out real quick, and we're going to start seeing people be a little more diligent about fighting that underhook as well on the back. Wild performance. It was definitely the main yells of the TV moment of jiu-jitsu this week. So let's move on. Anything else more on Tye Ruotolo?
Nope.
Let's talk about Kade Ruotolo. Hits the same thing.
Yeah.
The initial sequence there was an initial sequence earlier before the choke that I thought was really interesting. It was a big counter like Harigoshi from from Francisco Lowe.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna botch that every couple months. That Kade then counters with an ankle pick.
Yeah.
At the end, and I had to watch it a couple times to see like, oh, Kade like intercepted this counter from Francisco after the Harigoshi attempt to then ankle pick him into the guard. Like, that was a really quick sequence to be able to hit off of the ropes. And Francisco, like you said earlier, like at one point early in the match tries to hit a flying triangle, but
Off
Anthony
like-
Pettis style.
Off like the cage. Yeah.
Off the ropes.
Off the whatever the bar the
Not pylon is the
like
word
it's
for
like
it.
a post.
It's not stanchion.
The like the corner post.
Crossbar. Corner beam?
I
There's
don't
a term.
He tries to
There's a term for
like
it.
step on it and then jump a flying triangle, and I'm like, oh shit.
And it kind of looked like,
Yeah.
again, versus a lesser grappler,
Yeah.
not a guy on Cade's level, absolutely would have done. I mean, again,
Yeah.
we've seen Francisco Lowe hit that flying triangle on a couple of guys. I mean, notably Oliver Taza just over the guard. We know it's something that's really good in his arsenal. In the finish, it was fun up until that point. The finishing sequence is kind of weird because it almost looked like Kade gets Francisco's back in like a weird transition where Francisco kind of is in the center and like just rolls backwards to like reset his guard.
Yeah.
And Kade goes, oh no, like we're still fighting. I'm going to take it back here.
Yeah.
It was a weird like,
It's like
brain error.
It's the jump when somebody goes to that like kind of north-south inverted position. You have like a second, and if you can hit that second, like you can jump to their back.
Yeah.
It's just most of the time, most people we don't do it well. We
Well,
flop
a lot of
when we
people,
get to do
they just,
it.
there's a position, you're in kind of an intermediary position where
Yeah.
there's not a lot of contact. People would just sort of commit to resetting.
Yeah.
And we've seen more and more and more the highest level guys in the world don't give that reset. I mean, we saw Gordon do it a number of times where guys go to make that reset. They do a lazy turn and their back's facing and somebody will take them down or double leg them. This was sort of that. Like Francisco just made a roll and then didn't address that Kade was behind him, and then Kade went, cool, I can see your back.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump on it.
Yeah.
And then ended up with another arm and rear naked choke pretty quickly after that. But the first one was interesting because Kade hit it before his brother hit it. We broke this on in reverse order.
Yeah.
It looked like Francisco Lowe kind of tapped very quickly to it and seemed to be kind of surprised that it happened. Because it's such an uncommon choke to see hit.
Yeah.
It
also, I think the other factor is because of the way you're hitting it. If you have a fucked up shoulder, Like that's putting a lot.
It cranks the shoulder pretty high.
It cranks your shoulder.
Kind of like the
up
Doris does.
Yeah. So I could see like maybe he doesn't have the best shoulders. Maybe he has like maybe it's something.
There's a secondary factor there that maybe led to it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
Izaak
know.
Michell, it was pure choke.
Yeah.
You could see it.
Yeah.
But with Francisco, it was.
I'm just saying
choke.
because sometimes when I get Darce's, one of my shoulders, I will not say which one, does not go well into that position. So you get that, and as soon as my shoulder starts going, and it's like a very specific position, I'm done. Like, and it's.
You have to submit to it because there's damage there.
It freaking hurts.
Yeah.
Like, and it's well, these guys shouldn't be tapping to that kind of shit, but still. That's me, but
yeah, but
if a bunch of money's on the line, you're not tapping it because your shoulder hurts, but
yeah, but
maybe you are.
Well,
he also did.
If there's an injury there.
He also did IBJJF National this weekend, so
he's probably fine. But he's also Francisco Lowe.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He's a gangster for it.
Yeah.
They were two wild matches. Honestly, I watched a bit of the whole card as well.
Yeah.
The whole card was really good
too.
It
was
like,
fun.
The fights were a lot. Again, I really am a big fan of ONE FC and the product that they're producing and putting out there. It was a lot of fun. Fortunately and unfortunately, also after Kade won this match, he announced, like, I'm going to MMA.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm super sad about that, but I'm also kind of happy because you're young and you want to do it. And if you put on performances like this as the grappling champion, well, I'm kind of curious to see how you go into MMA. So the card that he's on is ONE FC 167, which is Stamp Ferretex versus Denise Zamboiga. Which would be a really fun fight in itself. We also have Sanchai on that card. Mikey Musumeci versus Gabriel Souza is also on that card. So it's going to be an amazing card. Plus Liam Harrison is on the card. And Kade Ruotolo is taking on Blake Cooper. I'm really excited for this one. It should be a lot of fun. I'm very curious to see how Kade looks in MMA.
Yeah.
If anything, if the fights with his brother we've seen, I wouldn't be surprised for him to look very good. So I'm also curious if Tye is going to also follow in MMA. Like, Cade's been the one that's been more vocal about really wanting to go in MMA. Again, Tye just won the title here at welterweight. I assume we'd see him defend that a few more times before making the transition well.
Do you think his hair can stand the way it does for 3 rounds or 5 rounds? Or do you think he's going to, like, the hair will fall and he'll get, like, the messy
the matted hair? I think it'll stand.
You think it'll stand?
I don't think he's going 5 rounds. I don't think he's going 3. He's not going 5 rounds for a bit here.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going 3 rounds. I think he is a phenomenal world level grappler.
just never
you can punch him all you want.
His hair, man. His hair, he's
got a look.
He's got all, like, I wish I had that.
He's got good hair.
I wish I had hair like that.
So that's the Ruotolo brothers this weekend, last weekend, back to back, the same choke. So nice. They did it twice, called it the Ruotolo team, and I'm not one to argue, honestly.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. Again, I'm a big fan of ONE. Cannot wait for ONE FC 167 to come on. I'm going to watch that whole thing because the card looks stacked. Let's talk about Subversion in New South Wales, Australia, that took place again last week. This was headlined by Ffion Davies defeating Nikki Lloyd Griffiths for the featherweight belt.
Yep.
Ffion is very good.
Yes, she is.
We've known that for a while. We've broke down her championships numerous years on the show. This kind of hammers that home. Ffion early in this match, it did something we've seen her do a bunch, and we're starting to see more and more high-level athletes do immediately. I think Duarte is the other greatest example of this. I think Bodoni's been doing it too. They will immediately pull guard as soon as the match starts.
Yeah.
And then as soon as there's contact, Nikki Lloyd Griffiths comes in here, and Ffion immediately wrestles up, cuts the corner, and then puts on her butt.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more of the championship level athletes do this as a strategy. And it's really interesting where we're not getting as much protracted guard play from them. We're seeing them use it as an immediate opportunity to sweep early in the match.
The only problem is for, like, IBJJF rules format, that's not 2 points.
Yeah.
Because you have to be up on your feet for a 3 count before you take them down.
Right. The wrestle up is
isn't considered a sweep or anything. It's a reversal that doesn't give you any points.
But for every other rule set that's fun.
Yeah.
It is. And ADCC, it's absolutely it counts. So it was just an interesting wrinkle here that we're starting to see that I wanted to call out of, like, we're seeing more and more champions immediately employ the strategy.
We also had, Marcelo used to arm drag into the legs.
Yeah,
and come up
seated.
with it.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a really famous ADCC 2007, I think. There's the greatest example of that ever. He just drags by and then sits up immediately and arm drags from the butt scoop position essentially up. But was he doing it immediately at the start back then?
I don't
He would do it
think.
in
I don't
transition
think.
later in
I don't think.
matches.
I don't think immediately at the start, but he definitely used to do that rather than like takedowns. You saw him like
Arm drag from the butt. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more common back then for Marcelo.
Yeah.
But again, it was an interesting little wrinkle that I'm seeing. We're seeing a couple of the world champions do this, and I was like, interesting. And then this is really Ffion's passing. Nikki Lloyd Griffiths does a good job kind of retaining her guard for a bit here, but then Ffion hits a really interesting kind of like a flop pass almost.
Yeah.
It's like a hip over pass where Nikki Lloyd Griffiths is almost to the inversion to try to retain the guard to like follow with the legs as Ffion cuts the angle to the side. And then Ffion does literally like a high leg flop pass and drops her hip to the top of Nikki Lloyd Griffiths' head over top of her, and then is able from that position to latch the arm. She's able to then free her leg out, and then she's able to get both of her legs out across the armbar position. And then the commentary calls it out. Jeremy Skinner, great on commentary for all the Aussies. Flares her knee out in order to let Nikki Lloyd Griffiths start escaping the armbar because it'll lead you right into the triangle. And this is something actually that I initially watched an Ethan Krellinston video where he was talking about this. And a lot of guys have done it for years now, but whenever I see this, I always think Ethan Krellinston for some reason because that's the first guy that, like, I remember seeing a video on talking about.
Yeah.
And then Ffion gets the reverse triangle from the back and then gets the armbar off that very shortly after. She almost, like you talked about in the pre-show, hits a lightning lock.
Yeah.
Thunder lock, whatever it's called now, which is that Kimura behind the arm, but Nikki Lloyd Griffiths is able to get the arm straight, and Ffion takes the armbar. Pretty uncontested, but it was impressive.
Yeah, that was one of those positions also that we saw a lot in AUGA, and then it kind of died, remember?
Yeah.
AUGA, there was a ton of them.
We saw like a 3 or 4 month period, maybe 6 months.
Where everybody was hitting it, and then
that triangle from the back was in vogue.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see Ffion coming back with it. I was really impressed with the pass, and then I was really impressed that Ffion was able to get her legs out from entangle from Nikki Lloyd Griffiths' half guard.
Yeah.
It is a really neat sequence. You don't see a lot of people that are actually able to ever free their legs in that position. It just kind of speaks to Fion's dexterity and just as an athlete in general, her ability to get out of that position.
She also flopped her butt closer to the head than the hips, because normally from that pass you would drop your butt towards the hips, right, and reach across the body, and then you would do like a big kind of leg circle to kind of get your leg out, right? So she flopped, and we say flop because she's dropped. Like, she didn't really. It wasn't. It was she. It was
less of an arc. It was more of just kind of a drop over.
Yeah,
the
and
top
I think it was.
through.
I think it was because Nikki was trying to invert under, so you had to just drop your weight and go, as opposed to like waiting or like positioning
or riding the hip around.
Yeah. So she just kind of dropped, but she dropped closer to the head and like the upper part of the body, which generally the issue there is that their legs are too, like, their legs can move too much, if that makes any sense. But it allowed her to have enough room to actually get her legs out from the position and not have to like kick it out or do whatever, mumbo jumbo you have to do to get out of that position.
The whole sequence was really interesting. And again, we kind of picked in the pre-show.
And it was sort of kind of what Keith did. When did Keith do that? Keith did in a match in Europe, and I forget which European match, where he just kind of went over the top and grabbed an armbar.
Recently?
Yeah. He armbarred somebody.
One of those Keith matches.
He just flew over somebody and grabbed an armbar. Sort of kind of the same one.
So I got nothing else on the Ffion Davies match. Nope. Ffion is as good as ever and looked phenomenal in this match. I don't think she called anyone out in her post-fight. I don't believe she did. But Ash Williams did. So we saw on this card Ash Williams defeating Ali El Kheir. Ali did miss weight coming into this match, so this was only Ash Williams to win the lightweight belt. Yeah. This was a lot of Ali pressing into Ash Williams' guard. Some good passing attempts, but really Ash Williams being pretty diligent from the guard. And then late in the match, they both go into footlocks. Ash really has the better bite on a lot of the ankle locks on the cross side. He is going both sides of the ankle locks. At one point, Ali grabs an Estima lock that Ash kind of bails a little bit on his leg lock entry for, and then comes back. But generally speaking, the way that Subversion goes through decisions is by submission attempts.
Yeah.
And so in those matches, if you're the one putting up more submission attempts, in this case, Ash was clearly doing that, and he was in the driver's seat from the guard. He wins a pretty clear decision here over Ali. But again, credit to Ali here for not getting submitted by Ash. That is a huge feather in his cap.
And he called out.
We have it here. I have it written down. Ethan Thomas, who is the trials winner for Asia.
Yes.
For ADCC. They have one more trials, right?
Yes.
There's one more. She was the first Asian trials winner.
I think it's Singapore. Is it Singapore?
I think usually is. Yeah. Asian and Oceanic trials. Or was the last one in Singapore?
No, the last one was. The last one might have been
Singapore. Was Singapore.
So this one might be the Australian one, right?
Or the Japan one, or like
yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah, okay.
I don't remember where this one is actually. The Asian and Oceanic trials. So Ethan Thomas won that, and Ash was like run it back. Even though I think they've gone against each other before, but both trials winners. I would love to see it. I think it's a fun match for Ash. Again, I want to see Ash take on all of the 66 kilogram trials winners because it's always a lot of fun. We can go back and watch his Keith match, Ash and Keith on Grapple Fest. That was one of the matches I point back to show you just how good both of those guys are. Great match. Also on this card, we had another trials winner, Adele Fornarino defeating Olivia UKMAR. I think it's Umar.
Umar?
Yeah, I think
it's in Bangkok.
Is it really? We're talking about trials now.
Yeah.
Again, May 11th?
In Bangkok.
All right, let's look at some tickets. Morph and I've always wanted to go to Thailand to watch Fight Circus. So
yeah. Dude,
we'll see.
We missed the last Fight Circus.
We did miss the last Fight Circus, and we were sad about it.
Very sad.
Adele defeats Olivia here. Again, Adele plays a lot of guard. We've talked about it in both of her trials wins for the 2022 World Championship and, again, for this last World Championship.
And for IBJJF, she plays guard.
Yeah, she's primarily like a guard player and kind of like Brianna Stay Marie plays a lot of closed guard.
Yeah.
And is a very, very good closed guard practitioner. And we see that in this match where she's able to kind of crawl up Olivia's shoulders, get to the high guard, and then invert under about like 5 minutes into the 10-minute match. And then hits an armbar, really smooth, just armbar, just really like a textbook armbar from the guard. Just you keep the posture down, you deal with them not being able to get their arm across, you crawl up, you throw the hips over, you belly down on it, and it's just, this is how you want everyone to initially, when you teach them to do the armbar from the guard, this is how you want to do it. It was a really great armbar from the guard. I don't have a lot more kind of technical breakdown on it. I'm curious to see how much more we will see from Adele before ADCC, but I'm very curious to see her in, I think she's under 55 kilograms. Yeah. For ADCC, she is now the Flyweight champion for Subversion. So overall, a really, really fun card. Again, I love the Subversion cards from New South Wales, from the Aussies.
And it's on Flow, which is good.
Easy to find. The production quality is good. Jeremy Skinner and his co-commentator, who I'm blanking on his name, are phenomenal. Skinner brings a great level of knowledge, and both like regional knowledge and jiu-jitsu knowledge to the mic that is always a pleasure to hear. I wish their in-ring interviewers, the mic was pinged into their audio, but you can still absolutely hear what all the athletes are saying and hear the questioning. Like, again, great production. I love that. I think they're probably one of the top, if not the top show in Australia. I love that they're bringing international talent in to take on Australian talent, and generally I've always had a really, really fun time breaking down their shows. So let's move on. We have last week we had Keith Krikorian taking on Albert Morales, who's a UFC vet. He's also a black belt. Keith had 2 matches, 2 different weekends. Yeah. None of them went over like 2.5 minutes.
No, not at all.
This is the longer one of the 2 matches.
This was at Art Suave in Anaheim, California.
Arte Suave brings Keith on a lot, and every time they bring him on, I'm like, hell yeah, Keith on an Arte Suave match.
Yeah, and they're always the West Coast, like they're always in like Scottsdale, Arizona, and like New Mexico, and like all that fun area. And I think they have a lot of the 10th Planet people. I think it's a real.
We see Keith on there all the time. We've seen Arte Suave over the years has put on some really fun matches.
It had the Aries guy. I can never remember his name. It's not Xerxes, but it's
also cannot remember the guy's name.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name.
He's a master competitor, and he's an Aries guy, and I can't remember his name.
Casino.
Yeah.
Not Casino.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, Oswaldo Casino. Yeah.
He was on it. He was on the last one.
I missed his match. That's annoying. I didn't know.
Well, he wasn't on this one. He was
he was on the last one. We broke down his match last time.
Yeah.
That was a fun match to break down last time.
Yeah. But that was because they were in like Albuquerque or wherever.
It was like super local to him.
Wherever they were. Yeah.
And like, we got Casino. I was like, great armbar. Let's watch it again.
Gotta love it. Gotta love having a bunch of super fights like locally, and just you're like, hey, this world champion lives.
Casino's here. You're like, that's crazy.
It's like Gabriel. doing
The Toro Cup.
Yeah.
He's just local to North Carolina. So Keith did fly in for that. No, Anaheim.
No, he's in. He's chilling in Anaheim.
Yeah, Keith's in
now.
Anaheim right now.
I think his parents
So it
live
was
there.
local to him.
He was doing a bunch of like videos of him cooking with his mom and shit.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
You have Keith Recording's Patreon.
No, but this was on his Instagram. He was like making bread or something. I don't know.
Huh.
I was like trying to figure it. I'm like, dude, Keith doesn't stop moving.
Yeah,
Ever.
he's very active.
Constantly moving.
In this, I love that you texted me this, the image. It's like, hey, what do you think this is? Knee bar, foot twist? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And we watched it a couple of times to figure it out. But the match is good. It's Keith very much in the driver's seat. Albert Moraes is like making space and like getting out of Keith's guard, getting out of Keith's guard. And Keith is consistently going for the inversion.
He is doing a good job, like not going too far into it. Like he doesn't
He's
allow.
not getting stuck into the guard and getting caught into the inversion that Keith hits there.
He's definitely getting brought into where Keith wants him, but he's doing a good job getting himself back out.
Yeah. He's also not just stalemating Keith. He's actually trying to play the game, which I appreciate because, again, a lot of times you have a veteran black belt or like an MMA fighter, they know how to play the game, and they're just going to keep out of the range, and it's a boring match.
Yeah.
I do appreciate Morales for coming in here and like trying to make a match out of it. But Keith is one of the best dudes in the world, and eventually is able to get underneath. Again, we see him consistently in this match going for it over and over again. He really seems to want the Choi bar into the knee bar. Yeah. Like, that is the position he wants.
Well, I mean, think about it. You have the Choi bar that you can attempt, and then when that fails, everybody's going to posture up when that fails. And then you just go to their legs. Like, everybody knows you go top, bottom, top, bottom.
Yeah.
That's kind of how
I just love in Keith's Patreon post, he was like, first time I've called a sub, and then he also gave a bunch of props to Craig Jones for like essentially this sequence, like stealing the sequence from Craig Jones. And I like seeing that. Eventually Keith gets over, he gets to the saddle position. He bellies down to the knee bar in kind of a really funny way where I can't exactly tell if he's hitting the knee bar or he's hitting like an odd position on a toe hold or on like a weird heel hook position. Yeah. I think it's a lateral knee bar.
It looks like a knee bar because he doesn't look like he twists the foot at all. But it looks like he's putting weight into like down into the knee.
Morales also laughs like 15 seconds before this because I think he kind of knows like Keith has the bite he needs and he's sort of like waiting for the end. So potentially Morales tapped before Keith had fully extended because he knew that like
he was in trouble.
I'm not gonna get out of this, and so he tapped maybe a little early. Again, I can't. From the video, it's kind of hard to tell, but regardless, Keith is going into something, and I think it's that knee bar. A lateral knee bar, by the way, is that knee bar that instead of hitting it on the front of the top of the not patella.
Patella.
What's the knee thing called?
Sir, patella. Your knee.
What's the kneecap called?
Patella.
Okay. Instead of hitting on the top of that, you go to the side and you pull sideways. Yeah. In Arctic Flyweight, it's allowed. Other organizations, it's allowed too. It's a less common knee bar, but they're really, really great in transition if you're going to go through a heel hook or kind of the sequence that Keith hits here from this reap. It's a really, really great option because you still have great control on the side of the knee in order to pull the knee sideways, and the ligaments don't appreciate that. And so Keith hits a really, really nice leg lock here to win in Arte Suave. Any other pieces on that match? It was a fun match. And then we also last week had Keith Krikorian defeating Alex Vieira on Subversive 10. Yeah. I think it's the only match we're going to cover on Subversive 10. There were some other good matches. I think Alex Enriquez had matches on that match. Steven Martinez, Alex Grandy, their team won the whole thing. And we've been really, really enjoying breaking down a lot of Alex Enriquez matches, but the card is very, very long, and we weren't able to find it easily.
It's a 6-hour card.
Yeah, and we weren't able to find the matches easily this week. But we did find Miranda, you found Keith's match. This is you said a 12-second heel hook.
Yep, that's about it.
Keith really quickly jumps over. He inverts over the top.
This starts with Alex doing a jumping guillotine at the very beginning. He jumps for his head and tries to roll over the body. Yeah. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to take your head.
And then Keith counters, like, and then Keith goes down to the legs, gets the reap, and goes, heel hook. And that's the entire match. Yep. Keith Krikorian is very, very good. Back-to-back leg lock finishes after a second place at West Coast, a fifth medal and a fourth second place at West Coast Trials, and then keeps going on with subs. Again, it's not.
He says he's never gotten a third place medal. He made a post about never.
He
never got a third.
That wouldn't surprise me.
He said he said
Keith
he's
needs to go to B team. I want to see Keith at B team for like 6 months.
Just because he's number 2.
Just because he's got so many stuff. He's like so many great performances. I think they would love him there. But yeah, another great performance from Keith Krikorian. Super active. He has more stuff coming up in the near future. I think we're gonna hear a lot from Keith.
Yeah.
Coming up again. I think it would be not a travesty.
Nah, it would be a travesty.
I would be upset to not see Keith in ADCC with such consistency.
I'll complain.
Such consistency at trials. Like
I'll
that,
complain.
I think should speak
I'll
for
complain
something.
that other people got bets in. Other people got spots, and Keith doesn't get a spot.
Again, I think he's shown that he's on the level.
Yeah,
and
I think so too.
He's an active competitor that's exciting. He's young.
They haven't announced any women. They haven't had any women invites.
There's only I think a couple of them. I think there's only like 2 or 3. Because again,
I just thought about it.
Divisions of 8.
I was like, think about it. How many women have they invited?
I think
Nobody.
we have the 6 returning medalists.
Oh.
And then of the 24 women in total, we're gonna have 8 added. We're gonna have 4 added at the 4 trials, and then we're gonna only really have a couple of 1 or 2 invites essentially. So
yeah, that's why. Okay.
Yeah. But again, they're small divisions, so that makes sense. Moving on, so that is done with the recaps for this week and for last week. Now back onto the schedule.
Yeah.
This next week we have Karate Combat Pit Submission Series 4, headlined by Craig Jones versus Renat Gladiator. As a name.
Fakhretdinov.
I'm gonna call him Renat. I don't know a ton about him. You said he's you looked him up before the show.
He's a Russian UFC welterweight. That's 21-1.
21-1 is a hell of a record, especially when you're fighting in the UFC. I'm as soon as I don't have the guy's face in front of me, I'm guessing as soon as I see this guy's face, I'm like, oh, it's Renat. Okay, that guy. Again, Craig Jones undefeated in Karate Combat Pit submissions.
Yeah.
Look at his flying triangle off the cage at Philip Rowe at the last one. There's not a guy I'm gonna bet against. Oh, this guy.
That guy.
Oh, yeah, this guy's a lot of fun. He fought Fiziev. Oh, no, sorry, he fought Nicholas Dolby. Yeah. Okay, this should be a fun match.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still taking Craig because I'm never not gonna take Craig.
Yeah.
Unless it's like Gordon, Duarte,
it's hard.
that's about it.
It's hard not to take Craig, especially.
Craig by leg lock
Yeah.
in pit submission. Now, again, I think UFC has taken away its leg lock rule.
Yeah,
they used to have
seen
it. I think they're back on okay, you're good to have leg locks again. So again, I would assume Craig by leg lock, but it wouldn't surprise me to have him also hit another triangle. That's what Craig was really known for in his purple and brown belt days, and even in ADCC 2017. Craig has an amazing triangle. I think Craig by submission is what I would venture here, especially because the guy's a welterweight.
Yeah. And
that means he's probably cutting from about 200. Craig is easily above 200, so he's going to be larger than Renat here. So we will see that. Also on the card, we have Kade Duarte versus Poya Romani, which Poya's a lot of fun to watch. I think it's really funny that we have Kade and Craig on the same card,
but not against each other.
It kind of makes me wonder if they are going to try to set up that match.
Yeah.
Because Craig seems to be really enjoying Karate Combat. We're seeing him on all the time. He speaks really highly of it.
It seems like a party.
It seems like Craig's kind of jam.
It seems like a good time. It seems like, hey, we're going to go to some random place. We're going to have a big party. We're going to do some grappling.
We're going to fly you out to insert country here, and Greg's like, I'm down for it.
Yeah, and we're gonna party it up, and we're going to have, some matches, and we're going to see what
Craig has
happens.
a couple minutes of match, and then he goes and parties, which seems good. I'm curious if both of them win, if they are going to try to match both of them up, if they figure out, kind of likes, doing Karate Combat, they treat him well. They treat him well in pit submissions. I'd be curious about that. But again, Poya Romani, we saw him most recently on, it wasn't Aiga, it was ADXC. Yeah, and he took on Denzel Freeman in that one, and we didn't know how that match was going to go. It ended up being actually pretty exciting.
Yeah,
we actually really enjoyed it.
For a big man match, it was exciting.
Yeah, we were amped about it when we broke it down.
Yeah.
Romani
and he's out of Dubai, so he's close enough. Like, it's not like he's traveling for this match at all.
Right.
Because it's in UAE.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Poya Romani, if you don't know, we've talked about him at AIGA. He had a match against Big Dan. That he almost got DQ'd for, and then Big Dan leg locked him, and then he beat Denzel Freeman at ADXC2.
He's
and
also
you gotta
like,
go Duarte
he's
here.
also like a beach wrestling champion.
He's a 2-time world beach wrestling champion, and he had one of the titles revoked, but still 2-time.
I've always wanted to do beach wrestling.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun.
He's a very good wrestler. He's
Yeah.
very big. He's very strong. But again, you're fighting Kade Duarte,
Yeah.
who is also very big, very strong.
Yeah.
Again, there's not, unless you're fighting Gordon Ryan and you're Kade Duarte, there's
Yeah.
not a guy. I'm not going to bet against anyone in the world against Kade Duarte.
Yeah, me either.
Like, I'm just not going to do it. I'm guessing that Kade is probably going to play guard here, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him kind of with the cage or with the kind of the embanked wall there
Yeah.
for pit submissions, for him to kind of be accepting to get pushed into the wall and then counter leg lock or take down
Yeah.
Poya off of the cage or off of the sloped wall there.
Yeah.
It should be fun. I think this match will be really interesting because we're going to see Duarte and Poya play off that wall. Like that, this match has, because Poya really likes to push guys forward. I think that's going to happen. We're going to see either some interesting guard work from Duarte off the wall, or we're going to see like some interesting standing work from that slanted wall. But again, I'm going Duarte here because he is Kade Duarte, your ADCC champion. Like, not going to bet against him. Also on this card, we have Izaak El Kheir versus Osama Almari, who is out of Atos, who had a match against Mikey, who's a world champion.
Sometime in March, the two of them were online, and they were trying to get a match at ADCC against each other.
I remember hearing this a little bit.
To be like the battle. They were like, we're going to battle for the Middle East because like one's from Yemen and one's from UAE.
Which I think is great.
And they were going to go against each other, and I guess that never worked. And I guess the Karate Combat guys are like, hey,
you guys want to have a match? You guys are both super high level and exciting.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah. It'll be a fun match. I don't know. This is a rematch, isn't it?
No, they went against each other in gi.
Okay.
I haven't seen them go against each other in no gi. They both do no gi, but not against one another. But at Worlds last year, they went against each other in the gi, and Zaid won points. Well, advantages. But
it'll be interesting to see it. And I assume it's no-gi.
It's no-gi.
Okay.
I think it's no-gi. I mean, they didn't say it's not no-gi, and the pictures are in no-gi. And both of them do no-gi. It's just...
Their previous match was in the gi.
Yeah, and it's a different... It's interesting when certain styles, because these are both two guys that like to pull at the same time. So they like to pull and do like the little...
the mirrored bolo.
Yeah,
thing.
the little bolo game. And they like to play that game. And I always think that gets interesting when you transition that to no-gi, because then in gi you can play all the fun guards. You can do the, lasso, you can do, and that's what Osama did in that match, was a lot of like lasso to De La Hiva, spider, and all that kind of stuff.
Very lapelli games.
Lapelli games and a lot of upper body control. And when you go into no-gi, you kind of have to transition that to lower body control. And I don't know
how that transition will happen.
I don't know how that will shake out.
Well,
but
we're going to see it next week, so
yeah.
I'm excited. Again, I always love when two athletes want a match, and there's a promoter that makes it happen, especially like guys at Karate Combat. Everyone that does Karate Combat and pit submissions now seems pretty happy with it, so I hope guys are getting paid, and I hope that, they continue to put on more matches.
That's the Jake Schilling versus Luke Rockhold main event.
Joe Schilling. Yeah. Oh, that's that card?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm actually
yeah.
Joe Schilling versus Luke Rockhold. That'll actually be a really fun fight.
And it's free. It's free.
Like,
it's on.
hell yeah.
It's on YouTube.
We will for sure be watching that.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. Also, this coming week, so PGF World. This begins on April 21st. It's on Fight Pass, which is awesome. It's a $100,000 cash prize. We've had some changes of the coaching, so do you want to run through it or me to run through it?
We can kind of both go back and forth. The coaches are now Higan Machado, Jean-Jacques Machado, Dean Lister, and Hadra Gracie.
Yeah.
We originally had Andre Galvao. He's having a knee surgery, and Eddie Bravo said he didn't want to coach some of his 10th Planet guys, or against some of his 10th Planet guys.
Which is reasonable. Like, Bravo's pretty loyal to his guys.
But at the same time, does that mean you're not taking them? Does that mean you're not going to pick them?
Oh, that's right. Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
So the way that we have 20 guys here.
mean?
We'll list all the 20 guys in a second, but the format for PGF works like this. So you have 4 coaches, and of the 20 guys, each each coach will select 5 grapplers, and it's done via like a draft lottery system.
Yeah.
So you each have like lottery dollars. So if you're in like the fantasy sports and stuff like that, this is how some fantasy sports leagues work, where you're given essentially an allocation of draft money, in quotes here if you can't not watching the video show, of draft money. And you can bid essentially for your athletes. So let me list the athletes. We have PJ Barch, Andy Varello, Renato Canuto, Elijah Carlson, Max Hansen, Kieran Kachuk, Davis Arce, John Combs, Daniel Slather, AJ Agazarm, Kevin Burring, Mike John, Ben Eddy, Cameron Hurd, David Evers, Jet Thompson, Samson, that's a name. Famabout, Kevin Sherlin, Nathan Haddad, and Jamie Carnell. You are bidding basically like, hey, if you really want PJ Barch, and you probably want PJ Barch is very good, of your allocated dollars, like you can spend all of your money on PJ Barch, but then you have to field 4 other guys, and you can't outbid anyone else for those guys. And so you have to be smart about your money. And what it does is usually it lets coaches, and in this case the guys choosing the teams, really selected who want to really go in Andy Varela or Renato Canuto or Max Hansen or Kieran Kachuk. Like,
but
we
you're
want
also
to spend more money on these guys.
And the problem with having like one big dollar person and having a bunch of lower level athletes and not saying they're lower level, but
not like guys. Not everyone in this bracket can beat JT Torres.
Yeah.
PJ Barch can beat JT Torres.
Yeah, so the problem there is you're running it like a team event, so you have to have your team being cohesive.
Yeah. You have to have your team in aggregate be able to win as a whole. So it's like,
and how many of these people hate AJ Agazarm?
That's reasonable. He does tend to make a few enemies here and there. So, but again, to AJ's credit, very hard to beat. Yeah. Very hard to put away. And in the PGF format, like that is a really good thing to have on your team. So for PGF, it is 6 points for a choke, and it is 3 points for a armbar. Or like a joint lock.
A joint lock.
And
then I think if it's a draw, they actually take points away from you.
I think it's like one. Yeah. They have again, people have been asking us to cover PGF for a long time. I've watched it, but I've always watched like just the matches and not really as much of like the league format, which is the whole point of how it runs. And I'm excited that this one's on Fight Pass. There's $100,000 on the line. There's a really great collection of athletes to pick from. I'm very curious how the teams are going to go. After the teams are selected, they go through some matches, and then there is a playoff format, and no matter where your team ends, based on your performance, you can still make it to the playoffs. And so I think they'll do a good job of explaining this in the show itself, so I don't want to recap too much. I would say that we watched the show. It's given just the talent on the show, it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like
this is a hell of a tournament. We're probably going to see some of these top guys go against each other because they're going to end up on separate teams. Like, I would be shocked if Barch and Varela end up on the same team. I would be shocked if, like, those are the two, I think, the top front-runner guys. But, like, you potentially can get a team with, like, Kachuk and Davis Arce or Max Hansen, and like guys that are really, really top-level guys. Like, what team do they end up with, like Barch or Canuto or Elijah Carl? Like, where do those guys shake out? And so it has a huge level of like X factor to it that I like.
Yeah.
And again, they're putting up a lot of money for the athletes to get paid. Also, like Cam Hurd, he's a guy local to us that has had some amazing performances. A Virginia Tech wrestler, Ben Eddy and his Hindula team.
So
all these guys bring special things to the table.
So they also have a shot clock. So a 20-second shot clock is implemented. Athletes must engage in a deep shot attempt within 20 seconds.
A shot clock. That's really funny.
Like it's a wrestling thing.
Which I like. Like, hey, you have to be pushing the action. You have to be moving forward. Again, PGF is doing a lot of things right. There's a reason why I've been hearing your DMs and messages over the years, and especially recently, for like wanting us to cover PGF. Here it is. I'm excited for it.
It says merely surviving is insufficient.
You gotta win.
You gotta
sub them.
Yeah.
Which again, for some of these athletes, is gonna be extremely hard to do, but you know, I'm excited for it. I'm curious. I'm really curious, given the different coaches like Higgin, John Jock, Dean Lister, Hodger Gracie. I think a couple of those guys are definitely going to make like gut picks on these athletes, and I'm really curious how the teams are going to stack.
Yeah.
And like how the bidding. I'm really excited to see how that first episode, how the bidding process goes.
Yeah.
Just like, where do people elect to strategically put their money to craft their team?
Yeah.
So it should be a lot of fun. I'm very, very excited for it. 421 on Fight Pass. And again, Brandon McCaffrey has been doing this for a couple of years now, and people have really, really enjoyed it. I'm really happy that it is on a bigger stage with top-level athletes and getting the athletes paid.
It seems like a fun time.
Seems like a great time. So, I got no other recaps this week and previews. Let's move on to the outro of the show. UFC 300.
Yep.
Man, that was fun.
It was. It was a good time. I watched it with my kid.
Nice.
My kid's commentary throughout the whole thing is hilarious. I was like, Abby, who do you think is going to win? She's like, that guy looks like he could hear everything. And I was like, why? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, is it his ears? She's like, no. And I was like, okay. So we just called him. So it was the samurai, because it was the guy with the samurai.
It was Yuri Prochazka.
Yeah, versus the guy that can always hear. That's what we referred to him as.
Your daughter's commentary is phenomenal.
So... Well, she's grown up around fighters and jiu-jitsu
like
her entire life,
Yep,
so she kind of like understands it. Then
she gets it.
Her big thing was like she wanted to see somebody get knocked out in a way when they just like drop.
Oh, you mean like Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje?
And so when she saw that, she was like, "I'm done. I'm done." That
was the week.
Yeah.
Yeah. That match. I was talking to Simon of the Grappling Rewind, because we were talking about the fights while it was happening, and I went. That is a movie where like you watch the movie and you're like, that's bullshit. And in the bad motherfucker title fight at the end, at the fifth round, finally the guy on the lower weight class knocks him out as he points to the ground. Like,
but Justin had 2 fucked up eyes and a fucked up nose
and a broken nose in the first round because Max Holloway's corner prepared him perfectly for the overthrow on the hook. Because Max Holloway can time the spinning back kick and broke his nose in the first round as the last strike in the first round. Then Justin Gaethje didn't blow his nose for 20 minutes with a broken nose. Well, it was astonishingly hard to do.
They said he had nose problems before and had to get it fixed. So he knew what was up.
He knows what's up, but he's had his nose fixed I think once at least, if not twice. I think he might have been the guy. There's one guy years ago that was making a joke about, I hope it gets broken again in a fight so the UFC will pay to fix it.
Oh, that's true.
But no, I think he already had the nose surgery, so it's like it may be more prone. But that was a phenomenal fight. Then we had Potan in like one strike. He gets kicked in the nuts, and then he pushes Herbdien away, and then just finishes the fight. It was like, dude, they walked out Eastern time at 1:30 at night, and I was like, please, Potan, please just finish this quickly. Or Jimmy Hill, I don't care. Either one of you, man. It is 1:30. I want to go home.
I do the same thing. I was watching at home, and I do the same thing.
And then he went, wah-boom, and then that was over, and I was very happy.
Yeah. And then we had Kayla Harrison.
Looking phenomenal versus
her
Holly Holm.
Her back is so freaking huge.
She is. So we were talking about, Simon and I were talking about her making 135. I don't know how much more she can make 135, because this is the first time she ever made it down there.
She is so jacked.
She is like diesel. Yeah. And it's awesome. Like the judo. And then props to Holly Holm on the reversal. Again, it's one of the things
she reversed her the one time and landed on top, and I was like, holy shit, she landed on top.
It's one of the things you talk about as a coach to your athletes, where it's like, that guy is really good at, or guy or woman is really good at this thing.
Yeah.
But the minute that you concede that space and like only like you're not going to be there, they're going to beat you there because you're just like doing everything. They know how to funnel you into what they're good at.
Yeah.
Holly Holm, again, maybe not the best idea to clinch Kayla Harrison immediately, but on the roll through, it was like, hey, Kayla Harrison probably didn't expect any MMA fighter to attempt to roll her through. And Holly Holm is savvy enough to go, well, I know you're going to hit me with this takedown now, so it's like I'm not just going to give up and go down. I'm actually going to continue momentum. And Kayla Harrison's probably not expecting that because she is such a strong judoka there. And he gets rolled over, and then eventually Kayla gets on top and then finishes. But, man, I'm really excited to see what Harrison can do. This is, again, the first fight at 35. She looked terrible at the weigh-ins.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm hoping that her camp, like, can hopefully make that cut. She looked like Conor McGregor, one of his last cuts to 45. Like, she looked really sucked out in the cheeks. And it's like, I'm always a little concerned. The older I get, the more concerned I get seeing fighters like that.
But she did it.
She looked phenomenal. Aljamain Sterling was on the card as champion. The card was full of champions. We had Jim Miller fighting UFC 100, UFC 200, and then Bobby Green kind of beat the brakes off him at UFC 300.
But hey, he fought it anyway.
He fought all three. But it was a phenomenal card. It was a lot of fun this weekend to come back. Went to the Eclipse last week. I'm editing a big video for another channel and a project that I work on. I lost some bets, so I have to make a pumpkin pie. Oh yeah, my notes. Pumpkin pie bet.
Yes,
You have to make a pumpkin pie.
Well,
That's so funny.
that was the bet. I have to make the pumpkin pie now.
I won $1.
You did?
I love. So if you ever watched fights with me or grappling with me, I love dollar bets.
Well, dollar bets are fun.
Because it's I'm at a point in my life, luckily, where it's like it is relatively insignificant. I can afford to lose $1 here and there with my friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know what fight it was, but I bet with a buddy of ours, and I won. And I was like, dollar bet night. I love ADCC. We do it in the stands all weekend. I had the running tab from ADCC for everyone's dollar bets, and it was like 30 or 40 different bets throughout the weekend of just like, okay, does someone hit a reverse triangle this weekend? And like, I'll take that. Then it was all our team for Grappling Rewind basically deciding like what heads up bets we were gonna take versus each other, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I love doing dollar bets, and I got to do some dollar bets UFC 300.
That's awesome.
So. That's all I got for this week. I've got a busy week of work, editing videos for the personal project I got for the Eclipse. And we've got some fun matches coming up this next weekend. You have anything fun going on?
Nope. Work. Some IBJJFs coming up.
Nice. I gotta host not an in-house scrimmage. I gotta host an inter-club scrimmage between the club that I run and the other club, the university club. So that will be fun. All the students are excited for that. So I gotta get them ready. And then I gotta tell my guys, hey, for that club, it's 3 seconds for control. For you guys, I am not joking. It is 4 seconds. If I am reffing your match, which I usually am, because I'm
so you're gonna be a dick to your own people?
Always. Like, I want my guys. I'm not gonna have you win a close decision where it was my call. Like, nope, you had to control him for 4 seconds. I'm letting you know. I'm not gonna let them know that.
Yeah.
But I'm letting you know that I'm not gonna score it till 4 seconds. If you can control him for 3, you should be able to control him for 4. And that's one of the things I always put to my team if I'm ever their match in like an in-house or something.
Is it two clubs?
Two university clubs going at it. And so we always do it, community once a year. We try to get them together, but my students have been asking me. They've been excited about it. So that's this week for me. So it should be fun. And I implore you, if you are ever in an in-house reffing your own guys, give them the extra second. Make them work for it.
Last time I tried to do something like that,
you've reffed my matches before.
Your coach yelled at me.
It happens. You've reffed my matches.
Yeah.
He was no points though. So
I actually reffed your matches.
Yeah.
But that was
Did you ref my heel hook in the gi?
Yes, I did.
That was
fun. I was like, it was half me like enjoying the fact you were heel hooking someone in the gi, and half like being like, oh shit, I have to pay attention. I have to actually do something.
Because you knew for months that we just all I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So I got nothing else, Brandon. Everything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. As always on the show, I'm your host, Mange, and co-host
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Rewind. So that what it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.